Great. So, welcome to our presentation today on an introduction to sales and use tax requirements. I'd like to thank you for joining us. My name is Shelby Wood, and I work for the City of Westminster in the Department of Economic Development. My job is to manage our small business resource programs here at the city, including developing and coordinating training opportunities like this one. Questions are always welcome, but we do ask if you have them today, if you could hold them until we reach the end of the webinar. Let's see, I got started and there's And we're just getting started. I was just noting that questions are always welcome today as we are going through our webinar. But we are going to ask if you do have those questions, if it's okay that we hold all of them until we get to the Q&A section at the end of our presentation. We will make sure that there is plenty of time to answer all of your great questions. If you're worried about forgetting whatever your question is until we get to the end, you are more than welcome to drop it in the chat. I will go back and revisit anything that gets dropped in there. And I will do my best to see if there's a way that I can unmute everybody towards the end too, so that maybe we don't have to use the chat and we can have a little better one-on-one dialogue. I will make a note that both of our presenters have also made themselves available to connect with you at any point outside of this webinar. So say you come up with a question a couple days from now and would like to connect, their contact information is going to be on our last slide, and they definitely want you to reach out at any point. I will also let you know that whenever this webinar concludes, that a copy of this PowerPoint and a copy of the recording will be posted to the training library that's on the westminstereconomicdevelopment.org website, so that you can go back and reference it later as well. Now, the purpose of our webinar today is to share about sales and use tax. We have with us sales tax auditors, Scott Jacobs and Patrick Espinoza, who are going to share the city sales and use tax requirements for businesses located inside and outside of the city of Westminster. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you, Shelby. I'm Scott Jacobs. I'm one of the sales tax auditors, and my colleague Patrick is next to me. We'll be sharing the computer. But first, I'm going to
You muted yourself.
Sorry, I just muted. Sorry about that. So I'll be talking about business and sales tax licensing, and Patrick will focus more on sales tax, use tax, the different types of taxes. I assume probably everyone on the call is or has a business or will have a business located within Westminster. And if that's the case, then you must have a business license, which is also your sales tax license, because your business is in the city. So that's part of our code. I won't read that to you. But all businesses, therefore, must file a sales and use tax return, even if it's a service-only business. Services are not taxable in the city, but only tangible items are. But you would still have to file a return, and that's your chance to remit use tax, which Patrick will talk about. And luckily, you can now register your business online through our GenTax portal. We have a new system, and I have a link to that later in the presentation. But if you're in the city, you'll need to file a return at least once a year as an annual filer. And depending on the threshold and amount of sales tax you remit, it could be quarterly or monthly. And that's something you can choose when you're registering your business through the portal. If you get it wrong, that's fine. We can always change it. Just do your best to guess at what you might be remitting in terms of sales tax. If it's nothing, then you're an annual filer. And then you may owe use tax, which Patrick will talk about. So if you have any questions in general about the licensing portion of it, please let us know at the end. Our city clerk's office handles licensing, but of course, we can answer most of those questions as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. Slide this over, Patrick, and then he'll talk about tax.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Patrick Espinoza. I am a sales tax auditor here at the City of Westminster. Just kind of wanted to give a brief introduction about our 4 different types of taxes, and kind of just dive into that a little bit and go over the nuances and some of the specifics of those. I do understand it can be a little bit tricky trying to, figure out the differences or maybe just some of the things that you might not know. That's kind of what we'll dive into here. Please, like I said before, and like Scott had said, If there's any questions, just drop them in the chat, or you can always ask us at the end as well. So these are going to be the 4 different types of sales tax, or just tax in general, that are going to be remitted to the city. That's going to be sales tax, use tax, accommodations tax, and admissions tax. And we'll kind of just dive in these next slides and go over what each of those mean. So the most familiar is going to be your sales tax, which is a 3.85% rate that will be remitted to the city on your tax returns, whether it's monthly, quarterly, or annually. And those are going to be on any sort of tangible personal property. So that's going to mean, seen, weighed, measured, felt, touched, stored, transported, so on and so forth. But most commonly, I mean, these are just going to be things such as, groceries, electronics, any sort of equipment. It could be anything retail as well. That's typically what we're going to see here for this. So if you have a business that's selling something and meets that criteria, that's what you would charge that 3.85% city tax rate on. And then you would also remit it to the city during those remittance periods, just based off of what you file for. So that's going to be sales tax. Now, diving into the next part, this is going to be use tax. This is going to be very specific to business owners that are in the city of Westminster. Use tax will not apply to anybody who owns a business or is conducting business outside of the city. In most cases, this is just going to be specific to someone who is stationed here in Westminster's city limits. And so use tax is going to be complementary to your sales tax. So this is going to be anything rather than sold by the business, consumed by the business. So let's say you have a business here in the city of Westminster and you purchase something for it. The city tax rate, as long as it's paid out, or a tax rate is allocated for that transaction. So let's say you buy something from Amazon and you see that the city tax has been allocated. Perfect. You wouldn't owe any use tax. Now, that also being said, if there's any transaction conducted by the business, whether it's, anything that's retailed, such as, furniture, equipment, anything retail, could even be going back to that grocery aspect that I talked about before. And let's say there's not a ample sales tax rate that's collected for it. So if you don't see that on the invoice or receipt when you're purchasing something as the business, that's that red light to kind of go ahead and either ask your vendor if they're charging tax rate, or if they don't, and you know that for a fact, that's where you'd remit that 3.85% city use tax on your sales and use tax returns for that period. So yet again, just to reiterate, I know I said a lot there about the use tax part of it, but if you're consuming something as a business and a sales tax isn't being paid on it, that's when you're going to want to go ahead and remit that use tax for your business. And then diving into the next one, it's going to be accommodations. This is going to be specific to a lot of our hotels here. So if you own a hotel, or if you have something to where you have an accommodations tax that could be charged, this is going to be for anyone who uses, possesses, or has the right to possess any room for accommodations purposes. That is going to be when you would charge that 7% for the accommodations tax on the room, and then you would then remit it to the city as well for that piece. So not as common as your sales or use tax might be for a business here in the city, but yet again, if you fit any of the criteria for those accommodations, that's when you'd go ahead and remit that 7% for the right to possess the room or accommodate. Going on to the next piece is going to be admissions. There's only going to be 4 criteria here for admissions. If you fall into any of these categories, I'm sure you'll know it. That's going to be performance of a motion picture or bowling alleys. Those are going to be the 2 most common. So anytime you go to a bowling alley here, anytime that you go to a movie, there's going to be an admissions tax charged for the ticket, or, the right to, in the bowling alley case, use the lanes and to be admitted into the bowling alley itself. There's also going to be 2 other ones. That's going to be any public display of live animals, plants. This is only seen in 1 case here in the city of Westminster at the moment, and that's going to be our butterfly pavilion. So unless you're the owner of the butterfly pavilion, you wouldn't have to worry about charging admissions tax for anything like that. Moving on to the next piece, it's going to be any establishment open to the public that is licensed to sell malt beverages. So anyone who's charging a cover fee at an establishment that's serving alcohol or whatnot. That's going to be your last and final privilege or right or privilege to charge that admissions tax. So those are going to be the four right there that are the four different types of taxes that would be remitted to the city of Westminster from your business. Moving on to the next piece, we just kind of wanted to give some tips here regarding what I just spoke about in terms of the use tax, sales tax, admissions tax, and accommodations. So number one is if you do have a business here that's licensed in the city and you're remitting those taxes and whatnot, check your invoices. That's going to be one of the best things for you in terms of that use tax remittance. So, you know, it could be something as simple as an Amazon, a King Soopers, a Target, a Walmart. We see errors all the time, even with, you know, larger corporations and such. So, you know, throughout the year, when you're making purchases and whatnot, just try to check that the percentage is something that correlates with, you know, the city or full tax rate remittance. I didn't talk about this earlier, so we do charge the 3.85% or, you know, require that 3.85% remittance. But sometimes on an invoice or a receipt, you might see an 8.6%, which would be for Adams County, 8.35%, which would be for Jefferson County. And mind you, that's also including the state rate as well. And then the other most common one that we see is 7.85%. That 7.85% is going to be a combination of, yet again, the city, county, and state rate. So just want to make sure that you're looking at those and like I said, doing your due diligence to make sure that the rates check out to either the full rates for the state, county, and city, or just state and city, or, you know, so on and so forth. The other thing too is we highly encourage you to keep, you know, just a good paper trail or copies of any of those transactions. So whether it's going to be your sales or any of your consumable expenses, we ask you to, you know, just keep a good list or paper trail for that, because here in the city of Westminster, it is possible for the business to be under audit, and we do go back 3 years from when we engage that audit itself. It's not something that's common, but it's always just something, like I said, you know, just check your P's and Q's and make sure that you're doing that. The other thing as well is file on time. That's going to be, you know, very important for the business owners out there. Interest accrues at 1% per month, and there is a penalty of 10% on whatever the tax due is. So even if, you know, as Scott had said before, you're a service-based business and you remit 0, it is possible that you could still be owing a $15 penalty for every late filing you're having, and those add up. So our deadline is going to be on the 20th of each month most of the time. Every once in a while, like let's say if the deadline falls on a Sunday, it'd be the following Monday. So yet again, just make sure that you're checking that each month and that you're, you know, trying to get it done around, you know, a week before or around that time. So at least then if you have any questions or anything, you can always call us and ask as well. And then I'll move on to the next one a little bit. I'll get this one back up.
Sorry, we hope we didn't move that too quickly. So this is something to look at, bundling labor with taxable items. It could be the way you are invoicing. Let's say if you have a plumbing business, or if you have a plumber do work on your business, just to watch on the invoices. But if labor is combined with a taxable, like a part that's used, the whole thing becomes taxable. But if the labor is stated separately, then that, of course, is not taxable, just the part is taxable. But if it's bundled incorrectly, we will, if we're auditing, tax the whole amount. So that's just something to look out for, even if someone is charging you, so that you know whether you've overpaid in tax or not paid enough. If you're not sure whether or not a vendor is licensed, feel free to check with us. So you may pay someone, you may order something online, you pay use tax or sales tax, sorry, they collect it from you. You think you're good, but they're not registered and they're not giving us the money. If you're audited, you would still be responsible for that. That again, as a use tax. And then Patrick already touched on the 20th, the deadline of every month. If you ever have questions about that, let us know. But just remember the 20th. And there was one item on the previous screen. We do not recognize the state's charitable sorry, I can't see my whole slide here. If you're a 501(c) or a 501(c)(3), for example, buys from you, they may be exempt from the state tax, but that doesn't mean they're exempt from the city's tax. We have our own application for that. So if you are a 501(c)(3), you would need to apply for that to be exempt from use tax. And if you have someone come in, you'll want to make sure that they give you the right paperwork if you're not charging the 3.85% Westy tax because they say that they're exempt. Government is pretty straightforward. It's more the charitable organizations that you have to watch out for. So that's really all we have. We can take questions. Shelby, I don't know if anything's come in yet. Oh, sorry, one last screen. We have links here, and when you see this online, you'll be able to click on these. This will just take you to different pages on our website. The most important one is this here, the online tax filing. I'm going to click it and see if I can show you without messing up the presentation. But this goes to our new online tax portal, and this is where we would like you to file. You'll have to have an account, of course, and then you'll set up a logon. And this is also where you would register. You can see in the registration box, if you haven't already, you complete an online registration. Once you have that, you can do a weblog on, create a weblog on. And if you have any questions, just call us and we'll help you with that. So those are links you can use inside the presentation. So this business license application is a bit outdated, actually. So just use the online tax filing page to do that.
Great. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the presentation then. I would like to thank everybody for joining us as we talk about sales and use tax requirements. I know it's not the most glamorous topic, but it's an important one. We definitely do welcome any questions from our 3 attendees today. And for anybody that's watching this recording at a later date, know that this team is dedicated to sitting down with you one-on-one. We know this isn't an easy topic. There's lots of ins and outs and a lot of specifics for your business. So please know that we are available in a resource to help make sure that you get everything that you need from us, and that way your business can move forward and be successful. I definitely like to give a huge thanks to our partners in finance for your time and expertise today, and to those of you watching our recording and on with us live. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all. This was good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ingrid.
See ya.